Hello and welcome to the Daily Grind here on Latte Firm. Sunday the 14th of September. Arsenal have beaten Nottingham Forest by 3-0 and we were top of the league until today. Super Sunday didn't quite go our way. Liverpool with a last gasp winner away at Burnley. They can't keep getting away with this, but I'm delighted to be joined by good friend Elliot of the Arsenal Vision podcast. My man, welcome to the firm. How are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here. I mean, I'm not at all rattled. I'm not at all enraged by what I saw earlier today. They can't keep getting away with it, except they keep getting away with it.
They do. They have this annoying ability. 4 wins out of 4. They sit handsomely at the top of the league. We keep convincing ourselves that it's not going to last. It's not sustainable, but they might actually get better. Anyway, listen, let's not talk about Liverpool too much. Let's not talk about the Manchester derby. Lots is going to be made of that over the coming days. We're going to talk about Arsenal tonight, my man. We're going to talk about how wonderful it is to finally have a squad. I want to get your feelings about how unreal and surreal this feels to have such a stacked squad. And I think we deserve this. We're also going to talk about some key takeaways from yesterday. The beast at the back, a new warrior of a centre-back at the back. Martin Zubimendi, he can score goals too. And of course, the wide men just doing their thing. So I want to get all your thoughts on that. Well, a warm welcome to everybody watching. Welcome to our Patreon members, channel members, and get involved in the chat. First up, Elliot, start of the season. 4 games in now, 3 wins and a defeat, of course, at Anfield. How are you feeling generally?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, I think we look like the best team in the league, and I realize that there are going to be opposition fans listening that feel that that's a biased opinion. But in terms of the actual performances that have led to the results, I still think we have the most to feel really encouraged about, and we still have the most pieces to come in and make us look complete. So I feel really good. The only disappointment, really the only disappointment is simply that Liverpool's point total doesn't tally with Liverpool's performances. But I posted something, and I know it's a little bit, it's a little bit of a wind up, but I posted something. There was an article a few years back when Conte was managing Spurs, and they basically said, Spurs haven't even played well yet, and they're ahead of Arsenal, advantage Conte. And it was like, playing poorly isn't a sign that you're going to get better. Playing poorly is a sign that something is wrong. Now, Isak might fix them, but for me, at the moment, if this is the level that they're going to play at, it gives me some encouragement that we're going to find a way to claw points back in the title race.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they cannot sustain the way they've started this season. I'm also hoping that our squad strength is going to see us through the sort of the marathon, if you like, and not the sprint. And let's start there because, Elliot, what a summer we have had. What a summer. This image courtesy of Live Score. I mean, look, every position, 2 players, and not just 2 players, Elliot, but 2 really good players. Arteta and Berta, of course, deserve a lot of credit. But what's your overall sort of, I guess, just feeling? I mean, it's relief, it's euphoria, it's kind of unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great to have it. And I think, I've said this on other pods, but I think it's worth repeating that the way we seem to address each summer is based on what we regard as the area where we fell down in the title race the previous year. So it was a couple seasons ago where I think the physical power that we had was lacking. We were run through by City at the game at the Etihad, and we addressed that. We brought in Declan Rice, we brought in Kai Havertz, who added size and physicality and hold-up play. We added players like Timber, who we didn't get to see right away because of the knee injury, but again, a physical player, strong in the challenge. And this past season, our season was wrecked by injuries, and so what did we do? We brought in a large number of high-level players to ensure that if a key starter is out, we don't feel that absence as keenly. I am still pretty confident that we will need these key star players to play a lot if we want to achieve our goals. I don't think we want to get too comfortable playing without Bukayo Saka, right? I don't think that's something we want to do. But overall, yeah, the squad looks fantastic. And I think where credit is really due is the players like Christian Mosquera, obviously, right? Players like that, where you spot an opportunity in the market, you convince a player to want you enough that you can get a really advantageous deal, and they slot right in and look at home in the team. I'll also invoke a bit of an Arsene Wengerism here with the like a new signing. It was sort of an abortive first season for Calafiori, I think, just because of the way injuries wrecked his first season. But in the midst of all the celebration about Mosquera coming in and Nani Madueke coming in and Eze coming in and Gyökeres coming in and Zubimendi, of course, Calafiori's been almost like a new signing because he has been our ever-present left back to start the season. I think he's been a really important part of the way we're playing. So I'd even throw him into the mix as someone who's made a big difference.
Mate, listen, it's massive, massive difference to the squad. This feels really surreal for me. Like every year, and you mentioned Arsene Wenger, we've been around for a long time supporting this fantastic club, and we've always thought to ourselves, going into every sort of deadline day, we're just one short, we're just too short. We finally have a squad, Elliot, where so many good players are not even getting near the first team. I mean, if we think about the players that didn't really play yesterday, you've got Kepa in goal, Ben White, you've got Saliba, of course, who missed out, and it was probably a good decision by Mikel Arteta to save him and keep him fresh for the big games coming up this week. Piero Hincapié has not even made his debut. Lewis Kelly's not getting a sniff in the first team at the moment. Then you move into midfield. Not seen any of Christian Norgard. Ethan Nwaneri coming on, obviously, for the skip. Hopefully, Odegaard is not out for too long. Declan Rice, rested. I mean, coming in on the tube to the stadium, I saw no Saliba, no Rice, and I felt quite relaxed. It was really weird. And then, of course, up top, Bukayo Saka's been out for ages. Kai Havertz has been out for ages. Gabriel Jesus is not even on the page. I'm so scared of pinching myself and sort of waking up and thinking this isn't real.
Yeah, well, and I think where it really makes a difference, we'll have to see how much actual rotation Mikel Arteta does, right? What I mean is, when Saka's fit, will he give Saka a rest and start Nani Madueke in an important Premier League game instead of Saka? When Odegaard's fit, will he rest him for Ethan Nwaneri, right? When the players are available, will he rotate? But I think what it did allow us to do, especially in this Forest game, is not rush anyone back. Might Saliba have started this game if we hadn't seen that Mosquera was so capable of playing at the Premier League level at Anfield, right? Might Bukayo Saka have been rushed back if Nani Madueke was not available? Now, I don't know if he was even in contention to be rushed back, but he was training. So I think where it's going to make a difference might be rotation. We haven't really seen that yet, but where it's really clearly making a difference is in the ability to not push players past the red zone or past the re-injury risk when they're just coming back from injuries. And that's going to be huge because there are definitely times in a season, and we all hear this, right? So-and-so's playing with a bit of a hip injury or so-and-so's playing with a little bit of a pain in their knee. Ideally, you'd like players not to be doing that. I think Declan Rice is a great example of a player who, when he is fit, there is no one in the game who has the engine like he has. But when he is not fit, and we saw this at Old Trafford, you see these really uneven performances that are very uncharacteristic of him when he doesn't have that running power. And I'm sure Declan Rice could have started against Forest, but he played, thanks to Tuchel, 2 90s. I think it was 2 90s. At least he played twice and played a 90 that he didn't need to for England. So instead of coming in maybe a little bit underpowered, we just bring in Marino and the performance level doesn't dip. It's incredible.
It is indeed. Mike Jones has just spotted that Trossard's not on there. This is not my graphic, courtesy of Live Score. I think they went with the two best maybe position players in each position. And Max Dowman, of course, not on there as well. He's a real option this season. I mean, wow. I've pictured the gaffer there on the right-hand side, Elliot. And before we go into the key takeaways from yesterday's game, I guess the club have done everything that they can possibly do this summer to give Mikel the best possible chance of silverware. What do you make of the pressure now, I guess, cranking up on the gaffer? Does he have to deliver one of the big ones this season?
No, he doesn't. It's an answer nobody likes, but no, he doesn't. He just has to have Arsenal playing good, winning football where we achieve a good point total, go far in the Champions League, and then we'll see at the end of the season how we got there. I mean, if we finish second with 93 points and lose the Champions League final to PSG on penalties, are people going to say, sack the guy, we need a new manager? No, of course not, right? Now, if we get 75 points and we're out of the Champions League in the quarterfinals to a team we should be beating, you might have questions. I think the bigger thing I want to see is if we don't achieve our goals, why, right? So for me, there is maybe a fair question about whether Mikel Arteta can get that last 5% out of our attack to make us look more consistently hard to stop. I do think people overrate the extent to which other teams are great at this. Liverpool today were 0-0 with Burnley until the 95th minute, right? Organized, compact defenses are hard to break through. But I do think Mikel has to find a way to get 5% more out of the attack, and he should be able to do it now that he's got options on the right, options on the left, options at the number 10 position, right? I think a more progressive and effective deepest midfielder. He's got a proper number 9, so he should get it. If we fall short, and the attack feels underpowered this season, that would be the only area where I might say, do we have to look at not achieving our goals for the same reasons over and over again. But as a final point on that, I think because people have this anxiety about, will we win stuff? Will we win stuff? Will we win stuff? All the focus winds up being on the attack. And we give so little credit to the remarkable defensive record we have, to this incredible organization. And I think having lived through years of the glass jaw and conceding 6 and conceding 5 and conceding 8, we should at least somewhat stop to celebrate a team that restricts the opposition to so few openings, that is so difficult to break down. I think it is overlooked now because everybody's just got an anxiety about whether the attack will click.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you. I think this guy is the right guy for the job. I know trophies are the biggest currency in the game, the only currency in the game, but context matters. Before we move on to the takeaways, Alex, thank you so much for your generous donation to the channel. Says, I apologize for the language, but thank you both for doing these pods. They make both the best of times and the worst of times so much. Come on, you Gunners. Alex, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Keep the chat active. Hundreds of you watching live on YouTube now. Please do drop a like of the video. It's a massive help to the channel on the platform. And if you're enjoying the content and you're watching for the first time, please do subscribe. Let's go on to individual performances. Our new beast at the back. This graphic, courtesy, as you can see, of the title there from Honesto Analysis via whoscored.com. Overall summary of his performance, Elliot, before I talk about a couple of stats. What did you make of it yesterday?
I thought it was even a step up from what he did at Anfield. You can say, well, Anfield was the harder test. But in Anfield, I think he played within himself at least a little bit in terms of his distribution. In this game, I think we saw more of the vertical passing. You can see some of that on the chart, on the left panel of the chart there. I think we saw some carrying. And he just expressed himself more on the ball, I thought, in a way that was really beneficial for us. The other thing we saw is just the extent to which he stays switched on. There was one moment, I want to say it was in the second half, where there was a ball over the top and he had sort of a stooping header in the box to clear it away, but he had tracked his man really brilliantly to do that. He just looks very composed. I mean, if you think back to the days of Shkodran Mustafi, and who wants to think back to those days, but you cast your mind back to even David Luiz and some of the players, Pablo Mari, there was a frenetic quality to the way they defended. And what I love about our defenders now, especially both of our right-sided center backs in Mascara and Saliba, is the calmness. There is a quiet way they approach the game. They aren't frenetic. They aren't big in their reaction and their emotion. Gabby expresses the emotion. We get that from Gabby, but I like on the other side that we have these calm, relaxed players who just seem very comfortable in the position. I would just say it will be good for Saliba to come back and Mascara to get a little break, because sometimes what happens with the backup players, and Tim Stillman says this a lot, they come in and they look great for the first game, great for the second game, great for the third game. You start to get to those fourth or fifth games where teams have had some film of them to watch and where the players are now having to play a lot of minutes, and that's where they start to get exposed. And that's where you start to see the gap to the top tier player. So for a player of his age and relative inexperience, to get this experience is massive. I'd love for him to not have to be playing every 2 games right now. I do think back to Arsene Wenger saying he was sorry Rob Holding didn't cost £50 million, right? So you can get very excited about the new guy early, but it takes some time for them to bed in. And so I think it'd be best for everybody if we just celebrate what he's doing, but not rely on him to be the regular guy right now. I think having Saliba back will help both of them.
I cannot believe what we're seeing in this boy. And I recall saying this, when Saliba sort of burst onto the scene, and I still say it sometimes, Elliot, I just can't believe what we see from Saliba. The guy came in at Anfield, 3-4 minutes on the clock. Saliba goes down, unexpectedly has to come on. Home of the champions in front of Anfield in such a game was magnificent. And I think you're right. I thought yesterday he was superb. His recoveries, composure on the ball. He's obviously a very physically aggressive sort of defender, but he's got a real finesse about him when he's on the ball. He looks calm. This is a 21-year-old boy at home debut. What we're seeing is phenomenal, and hopefully he can keep it up. I mean, his stats, 6 ball recoveries, clean sort of tackle win rate, 2 key interceptions, not so dominant in the air, but Chris Wood, of course, is a nightmare. What are you going to say?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing to this, and this is where I think we aren't fair to the manager and we don't give the manager enough credit, because when young players come to a new league and get thrust into a starting position, it is very easy for them to get exposed. And the system that Mikel has built and the cohesion of the way we play and the way that system keeps players in good positions to succeed, I think makes it easier for a young player to come in and not have to be defending on an island and 1v1 and under extreme stress. I saw Jarell Hatto, I think, got subbed off at halftime with a very poor rating in his debut for Chelsea. We've seen young defenders at United consistently embarrassed. I think Kusanov came to City and basically showed up, made a mistake, and was gone again for a while. We didn't see him. I don't think he looked particularly good today either. There is a huge burden on a manager when you have a new young player just arriving in your league, that when you use them, you put them in positions where they can thrive. And I think Mikel's system and his approach is such that these players come in and they feel very comfortable in their role. That's not to take anything away from the player himself, but even good players can be put in bad situations and fail. And obviously our players are put in very good situations to succeed.
Well, you quoted Arsene Wenger and the Rob Holding fee earlier, and Arsene Wenger has talked about young defenders costing top teams points. And this kid, what he's done in just 5 minutes of his career at Arsenal is really impressive. And of course, he's going to train every day with the likes of Saliba and Gabriel. He's going to train every day against the likes of, Saka and Madueke and Eze and Gyökeres. Hopefully, one for the future. Really, really impressed with Christian Mosquera. Good luck to him for the rest of the season. Zubimendi, I mean, we talked about him, Elliot, as being our metronome, the sort of tempo setter, the sort of orchestrator from deep. But the guy can score goals. The Premier League's in trouble, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we should expect a lot of goals from him. That's not what he's known for. But I just want to say the improvement at that position versus what we've had there previously is night and day. I think you see it in our defensive record. We're not running back towards our goal with players finding ways to play through us in the midfield. He's always where he needs to be. He's always around the ball. His positioning is exceptional. He has a really nice way of, when he can't make the tackle but fouls, it doesn't create a lot of opportunity, I think, for the referee to get too involved. You know what I mean? His tackles aren't big, physical, aggressive challenges. They're tactical. They're intelligent. They're the kind of stuff we'd always get annoyed that City would get away with. It felt like Rodri could make 20 fouls a game and never get a card. But I think there is an intelligence about that, right? If you're around the ball, if you're in the right place and you're just a half second late and it's nothing big, nothing major, you can get away with it. So he recovers the ball well. He dictates the tempo. When he fouls it, he doesn't get cards. He's just a very intelligent, easy player to watch. And I for all of our depth, this is actually the player that I look at and I say, we have to find a way to keep this guy fit and firing all season long. We need him healthy. So I don't know that Norgard is a straight one-for-one replacement for Zubimendi because their styles are so different. I do wonder, for example, at midweek this week, I assume he'll want to play going back to Spain against Athletic Club. But when Mikel wants to get him some time off the pitch, will it be Norgard who comes in? Will he slide Declan Rice back? I'll be very curious to see how we handle that.
Yeah, Rancid Pumpkin saying he deserves his nickname, Subamendi. And Ray, just coming back to that point, Zubi will transform us, but the only problem is that in just a few games, he's already irreplaceable. I mean, my takes on this guy are, I love what he does. I think he needs to get to 90 minutes of fitness. I think he sort of starts blowing from 70, 75. It'll come. He's really surprised me, Elliot, as to how quickly he settled into the intensity and the ferocity of the sort of midfield battle in the Premier League. The game is like one step ahead in his head. The niggly fouls, the sort of, he just nips in really quickly, sweeps up. He's just everywhere. Like his touch map from yesterday is absurd. Deep touches, middle touches, final third touches.
Yeah, and this is the position that I feel like for years and years and years has been hard to solve. And that the teams that do have it solved have one guy there, and if they lose that guy, it's a house of cards. Look at City. They have Rodri. When Rodri's gone, they look dreadful. Liverpool kind of get by with Gravenberch, and when Gravenberch is out, I think they look really, really weak in midfield. United haven't had that position solved in ages. We had Xhaka there for a while, and I think when Xhaka was our deepest midfielder, we had issues with press resistance and getting run through. We've seen that that's a position that when you don't have the key player in there, it can be a real problem for you. So to have solved it with this quality is great. I don't think you can really expect to have anyone behind Zubimendi who's going to be as good as Zubimendi, but this is where the embarrassment of riches comes in. I really believe with Declan Rice and Mikel Merino and Kai Havertz and Ethan Nwaneri and Eze and Odegaard, if you have to move Rice back, it'll be a different approach to that position, but you're talking about one of the best players, full stop, in the world, just sliding a little deeper in midfield and maybe putting two more attacking eights in front of him. So I think we have options, but he certainly feels like one of the most important names that's written in ink on that team sheet at the moment.
Quite right. Vive Lad says, so glad we got him. There's a reason why all the top clubs wanted he, of course, waited a year to join Arsenal. And what else was there? Jeet, Rodri was saying earlier in the week that he can be a top player. And for the Ballon d'Or winner to say that, that is big. Let's move on to the final third of the pitch. And let's talk first about Noni Madueke. Now, this chart on the left-hand side is something that we've seen familiar. Bukayo Saka, Odegaard, White, that right side combination. Last year, most of our attacks coming down the right-hand side. Yesterday, again, most of our attacks coming down the right-hand side, but because of the brilliance of Noni Madueke. What did you make of his performance, Elliot?
Yeah, the really intelligent teams find the dope, as Clive says. They find the weakness in the opposition, and they just keep hammering away at it. And it was clear that, I think his name was Morato, right? The
Yep.
sort of center back playing left back was in no way ready to handle Noni Madueke, and we just kept ringing that bell. It's kind of interesting that it didn't wind up really leading to a goal, but it led to a lot of corners. It led to, I think, Forest sinking deeper. And there is this feeling, I think, sometimes that all that matters are the moves that lead to goals or the things that generate goals. But football is a territorial sport in some ways. I think it's a psychological sport too, because how much pressure you're under, how panicked you feel, can start to lead things to unravel. We've been on the other side of that at Arsenal, right? When you're in a game where the opposition is on top and you feel it's coming and you feel psychologically you're wearing down, that you're just clinging on. I think when you have a player roasting your left back and getting to the byline and putting in crosses and winning corners and cutbacks, it just creates a panic in the opposition. And it takes away their ability to focus on how they can hurt you because they're so concerned about how they're being torn apart. The data, the people that looked at the data loved Noni Madueke the moment we signed him. I think it's very clear that as a ball carrier, he is powerful, he is difficult to stop. But what's really impressed me is the technical level is probably higher than maybe I understood, just because I think aesthetically, he's not the cleanest player aesthetically, but the technical level is still pretty high. He went to the byline most of the time in this game. I'll be curious to see if he starts to go back on his stronger foot and want to take a few more shots or, curl an in-swinger to the back post more. My only thing I would have loved is there were a lot of little just stood up crosses when he got to the byline. Mm-hmm. And so if we just get a little more variety in that final delivery of what he does when he beats a man, I think there's even another level he can go up. But with Saka coming back, now the pressure's on Mikel because you have a player who has said, I belong in this team. He's not going to keep Saka out. So now you've got a really interesting battle on the left-hand side to see who's going to get the position there.
Indeed, you're getting a lot of love in the chat, Elliot, from channel members, but also Hand of Arsenal. Big up, Elliot. Top guy, he says. Hand of Arsenal, thank you to you, my man.
He's the GOAT.
He is the GOAT. The GOAT. I was going to ask you a question about Noni. I mean, look, everything that you say is absolutely right. I think what I love most is that he's just a positive player in terms of his play. He wants to get the ball. He wants to just run at his fullback, and he had his fullback and his defender on toast. Yes, it was borderline abuse. And like you say, the end product will come when the familiarity with his teammates, the automatisms that we all talk about and know. And I think he's only going to get better. But the question is he really just an understudy for Bukayo? I mean, I'm not suggesting that he's going to keep Bukayo out of the team because I think the star boy just gets back in and he plays where he wants. But where else could Madueke be deployed? Do you see him as maybe the left wide solution?
Well, you know what everybody starts doing, and I'm guilty of it too, because I did it even when Airy burst on the scenes. People start saying, could Bukayo Saka future be more of an interior in that right 8 spot? And now Martin Odegaard's position comes under threat. And this is what happens when you have really deep, talented teams. People start playing FIFA, right? They start thinking, well, how do I get Saka and Nani and Eze and Odegaard? And you can't get them all on there. And the job isn't to get them all on there. The job is to play the team that most cohesively impacts the game in the way that it needs to be based on the opposition's weaknesses and their strengths on that day, right? So to me, moving Saka into the interior is not something we necessarily want to do, but I can almost hear Clive's words ringing in my head about how many sprints do we want Saka doing right now? How much confidence do we have in that hamstring? And if he were moved to the right 8 or played there occasionally, does that save Bukayo Saka some of those wind sprints on the touchline, right? That may just create the opportunity for the hamstring to twang. So I'd be curious to see if Mikel would try it. He's got an embarrassment of riches in the midfield already, so I don't know if he would do that. The left-hand side is an interesting one because I think Eberechi Eze is a brilliant player. We spent a lot of money on him, and I think he belongs as a starting player on the left. Nani Madueke, we've seen him briefly on the left, and I know it's very unfair to judge based on that brief cameo, but I think he's looked better on the right, which is a more natural position for him. But games aren't just starting 11s either. One of the things that I've been frustrated with about Mikel, and I can be frustrated about things with Mikel sometimes, right? And for me, it would probably be the willingness to urgently and early make early changes to influence games, to get players off who are blowing, to get players off who aren't influencing the game, and take advantage of the depth of talent that we have to change a game before the game changes without you, right? And so Nani Madueke playing 35 minutes in a game is still a really important role, right? If Saka doesn't need to be out there after 55 or 60 minutes, or Eze and Madueke sharing the left-hand side, that's still a very good use of your squad without having to fully rotate from the start.
Mate, I couldn't agree more. I think it's so important to take minutes out of players' legs. It's so important to keep a sort of squad fresh and fit. And I think Madueke gives us options. And obviously, you talk about, I think you started it. The game is about starters. The game is about finishers. And, imagine defending against Saka for 60, 70 minutes. And then Madueke comes on to tear you a new one. Like, it's going to be really, really exciting from Arteta's perspective. And that kind of leads me on to the next slide, which is the final slide of today's show. It takes the pressure off Saka. We've seen situations like that on the right-hand side a few times, Elliot. I actually Googled Saka defenders, and there are so many images of him just being doubled up, tripled up.
That one's pretty funny, though.
This one is very funny. But, we all know the drill, right? The ball goes to Saka, and the opposition team always try and sort of surround him. They close him down, and they get numbers on him. And that, of course, means that that's the one side that we attack, but it leaves gaps on the other side. But now with these two, and we'll talk about Eze's performance in a second, but if now we've got credible attacks down both sides, that is, that's something that teams won't be able to do so much because they're going to leave massive gaps. Talk us about Eze's performance. His debut, of course, got an assist. What did you make of that?
Yeah, well, there's a few things. I mean, the first thing is in the first half, because Morata was just getting roasted, we just didn't use the left-hand side, and that's fine. But I think what you saw is that when that side started to be shored up by Forest, and we did use the left-hand side, you see immediately what makes Eze so special. He can turn a nothing situation into an opportunity with a clever dummy, dropping a shoulder and beating a man. I think what everybody wanted to see is, does he look natural as a winger? Well, he looked supernatural to me. Beat a man on the touchline for dead and sprinted past him. I thought his recovery running was good defensively. That's an important part of being a Mikel Arteta player. But the goal is classic winger play. It's really intelligent timing of a run to stay on side, just. And then sometimes when you're really good, when the game slows down in your mind, when you make the right actions with the right execution, it can be so simple looking that I think people fail to give a move the credit it deserves. For Eze to sprint 50 yards and have a ball bouncing over his head and to hit it first time where he takes all the bounce out of it and puts it across the corridor of uncertainty right for Gyökeres to run onto it, that's a sensational assist. And he makes it look so simple, but there is no touch that he takes until he kills all the spin and bounce off the ball and puts it right where it needs to be for Gyökeres. So it's phenomenal winger play. He's doing that, by the way, with his weaker foot, right? So I just think kudos to him on the assist, but he had so many other near misses, 1-2s. We started to see that we haven't seen on the left-hand side in ages. 1-2s, 1-2-3s, combinations. We almost tried a little bit of the Jack Wilshere Norwich goal where there was one where he was trying to run through and it just didn't come off. They'll learn those moves together more as he plays more. But what was the last 1-2 or 1-2-3 sort of combination play you've seen in the left half space on the edge of the box for us? We haven't seen that in a while, and it's back. I think he is obviously a more facilitative player than Nani Madueke is. Nani Madueke's got a lot of qualities, but I think there's a slight difference there. And ultimately, I think Eze is a really good partner for Gyökeres, who wants to run channels. He's going to find those channel runs. So I loved everything about it, and I think it's literally just scratching the surface of what's to come.
Indeed. And Piero Hincapié, of course, hasn't even played yet. Really interesting to see how he's going to team up with whoever plays at that sort of left wide forward. Last question on Eze. Ødegaard obviously out now, presumably with some sort of shoulder injury. I think Arteta spoke quite positively about it, that he's doing everything he can to be back. But if he's out for, let's say, a week or two, or maybe even longer, could Eze do the Ødegaard role? And then is that what you're expecting, or are you expecting Eze to stay out on that left-hand side?
I mean, I gave, on our instant reaction that we do on our Patreon, I gave credit to Mikel for just going with the next man up, and that's Ethan Nwaneri. There are a lot of managers that wouldn't have called on an 18-year-old without a lot of midfield experience in a Premier League fixture that at that time, 12, 13 minutes in, didn't look like it was going to be an easy win. So he just went with Ethan. He just picked the 18-year-old and said, go play in the midfield. And he has a lot of choices, right? He could have brought Rice in and moved Marino over. He could have brought Martinelli or Leo in and moved Eze over. I think my instinct is that Ethan Nwaneri is the backup right 8 right now. And that unless he puts in performances that Mikel's not happy with, I think he will get that role. It seems pretty clear that Mikel is happy to use Mikel Merino. So maybe he will want to go Rice, Marino, and Zubamendi in some games where he just feels you need that physical power. But for now, I expect it to be Nwaneri. Are there games where it might be Eze? It could be. And then I wonder who we would use as the right 8 in that case. But for now, yeah, I think it'll be Ethan.
I know there's a lot of praise coming in for Ethan Nwaneri. That's been great. Really appreciate that. Thoughts ahead of our Champions League game? It is, of course, back while we travel away to Spain on Tuesday. You expecting the gaffer to rotate?
No, not really. Not much. I mean, a little, but not much. I think this is one area where we tend to be wrong a lot as fans. As we think, oh, it's athletic club. We could beat them and rotate because we got the big City game coming up at the weekend. But players want to play in the Champions League. I think it was Eze and Nani Madueke were being interviewed after the game by one of the broadcasters, and they said, we're really excited. It's our first chance to play in the Champions League. Now you're going to take them out of the team to say, I'm rotating you for City when they've never played a Champions League game before. They want to play on that stage. And I realize the manager has to be smart about saying, look, I need you for City. It doesn't matter. But you want to get this Champions League campaign off to the best possible start. I think you want to get, some cohesion into the attack still with some of the players we're going to have available to us. I expect it will be very minimal rotation. Maybe Rice comes back in for Marino. Maybe he lets Miles have the game instead of Calafiori. If Ben White is fit, I could see us not wanting to play Timber every 3 days right now. But up front, I expect largely the same thing. And it's going to be an interesting one. I mean, obviously going back to Spain, Zubamendi will want to play there. Marino will want to play there. I think Nico Williams is out for Athletic Club, and they didn't look great against us in preseason either. So maybe it is a case where we start very strong, but if we're lucky and things are going well, we have a chance to do some early subs to get players rest.
Well, let's wait and see. That is a big game. First game, the Champions League is back. The music, the vibes, everything about it. So we'll have a preview show tomorrow night. Do join us for that. Sean, by the way, says, love these crossover pods, guys. Keep them coming. Don't forget to laugh at United. Yeah, that was very, very funny today. 8 wins in 31. Ruben Amorim. Surely the writing's on the wall.
What I saw is since he's been hired, United have the least points of any ever-present club in the Premier League, meaning if you take out clubs that have been relegated, no club has fewer points than United since Amorim's been appointed.
It's insane. I mean,
yeah, it's fantastic, really.
Absolutely. Long may it continue. Is it a genuine question? Like, could they be in a relegation battle this season?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think, first of all, they just have this way in some of the big games, I feel like not today, but at Old Trafford, of just showing up and finding a performance out of nowhere. They don't have Europe, so I think as clubs start to get into having midweek football and they don't, you might just see the benefit of them having a bit more rest than some of the other clubs in the league. But no, I mean, I don't think they're in a relegation scrap. I also believe, look, if it came down to it, and they were in a relegation scrap in January, Amorim would be gone. Now, I don't think Amorim will be there by January. I think he'll be gone long before Christmas. But no, I think... Yeah, I know. Well, there are some hilarious options out there. So we keep hope alive for some of them. Yeah, there are some very, very funny options.
Let's wait and see. Listen, Elliot, it's been really good fun. I really appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you and block you, to use your line?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. You can find me on the Arsenal Vision podcast where you'll find Clive, Tim, Paul, Phil, all manner of great people doing great stuff. But the two things I wanted to mention, if you're listening to this or watching this from the States, NBC's having their Fan Fest in Kansas City next weekend over the Manchester City weekend. We'll be out there doing a live pod on Saturday in the Power and Light District in Kansas City. And then Gooner Palooza is something the Chicago Gooners put on every year. They're doing it the week of the West Ham game this year. So we'll have a live pod in Chicago. And then it looks like I'll have some kind of event with Clive in London in December around the Wolves game weekend. So there should be stuff going on that we'd love to have you be a part of. Yeah.
Thank you for that, man. Really appreciate that, Clive. Of course, that would be a fantastic event in London, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Well, look, enjoy the week, Elliot. Another win. You go into work and you have that sort of chest out and a spring in your step. Champions League is back on Tuesday. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gents, boys and girls. 600 of you watching live right now. If you tuned in for the first time tonight, please do subscribe if you've enjoyed the content and drop a like on the video. We'll be back tomorrow. Take care. Bye for now.